Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you what it's like managing your parents' money, and I'm going to show you their accounts, what I've done with them over the last 6 months, and how they're actually performing, because this is something I've kept swept under the rug for a while, but I think it's an interesting conversation. So let's jump right into this. Welcome back, my passive income investors alike. Today is a weird video because it's something that I was doing this morning, and I noticed I've never talked about this. My parents have lived through some crazy, wild things, including the '08 crash when some of their holdings went bankrupt, and I've realized it's because they were holding positions they didn't understand. They didn't know when to sell, how to get out of them if they should have got out of them, and it ended up costing them a lot of money. So recently, well, pretty much I think at the beginning of this year, I started managing my parents' portfolio for them, and I'm going to show you it up on the screen here. Fortunately, I couldn't get a screen cap of this, so I ended up just filming it right off the screen to show you the positions that I purchased for them literally just probably about 6 months to a year ago, and I started managing out some of their positions, and I'm shocked their portfolio is pretty much doing at par better than mine is anyways. But I laughed because I remember when I first started doing this for them, they were a little worried in the beginning because obviously look at the buy price on Apple there. When it dropped from that 200 mark, it went down quite a bit, and they had a few other positions that went right into the red as well, including some of those bank positions you see there. But overall, I just told them to be patient and wait. These are amazing holdings. They're still cheap. Trust me, just be patient. Now they're collecting a $2,000 a year dividend, and then on top of that, the entire portfolio is up a couple thousand. It looks like if things can just maintain, they'll be making about a 10 to 15% return so far, which is absolutely amazing for managing about 50 she just added an extra 10,000. So we were just buying positions this morning, but the original portfolio was in the $40,000 mark, and now it's around 52. She added about $10,000, and then on top of that, we bought about $5,000 worth of MO, that Altria group, this morning. That's right, I bought my parents some of them tobacco stocks, and the reason I did that, I talked about in my last video I just posted there, but the reason specifically was my parents used to smoke a lot. They recently only quit pretty much just under a year ago. They both quit smoking. My mom uses the nicotine breath spray stuff that you get from Johnson & Johnson. Someone's always selling that nicotine, man. But when I realized that, like, look at MO right now, I think it's way too cheap. I think my parents need to get some of their money back from smoking cigarettes, and I honestly don't think you get better than buying the company that was basically making them addicted. So I think it's a fascinating thing. This will be fun to see how it works out, because right now it's one of the few red positions in this portfolio, and I think overall they're going to be getting some money back. I said, come back to me in 3 to 5 years and tell me I made a bad investment, because I just don't think that's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And right now it's on about a 47% discount from its all-time high. So that was the newest position I added this morning, and it was the reason that I wanted to talk about this video. We'll talk about that in this video, because I've always kept it quiet that, you know, I'm actually managing my parents' money. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I feel like I'm confident enough that I know what I'm doing, that I'm glad that they're doing quite well with the positions I bought them. And I bought them positions based on their age. These aren't, in my opinion, risky investments whatsoever. These are all massive companies. Facebook's in there, and it's doing incredibly well. I was buying my mom shares in Facebook for, I think it was $153 a share on average there. And then including like Ryokan, multi-billion-dollar real estate company, like things like that. The only risky one in my opinion is pretty much Facebook, just because it doesn't pay that dividend yield, but they need some growth behind their portfolio to make up for the money they essentially lost. My parents lost a lot of money off investments, and I told them how they can avoid having that happen again. And like I said, my mom used to take on a lot of high risk investments, a lot of oil companies, a lot of gold and silver companies. They just don't pay yields, very risky, speculative plays. I think Facebook is really the only speculative play in that portfolio, because again, I mainly expose her to companies she's going to be able to hold on to for the rest of her life, that are hopefully going to pay for their trips. Because recently they just went on a bit of a trip to see some friends in Winnipeg. I think they really needed it. My parents are incredibly hardworking people. My mom is a sheep farmer of all things, and my dad does concrete foundations and things like that in homes, and I just don't think they deserve at their age to be working as hard as they are. Mind you, they love it. That's their generation. So I mean, it's nice that I can find a way, and I'm just explaining to my dad, because my dad has had some time off recently. Like, things have slowed down a little bit in this season right now, but they're still busy, just not as busy as they were. And then my mom's always just like, well, are we still gonna be making the same money and all this? And I'm like, this is why I'm making a dividend portfolio, all right? Like, $2,000 makes up for a lot of work you might not be doing, and that's the point behind it. So it's nice that I can get them to that level starting like literally today, and we still got about another $5,000 in that account to invest. And like I said, it's just going to slowly build over time. My parents are slowly working to it. My dad technically could collect unemployment at this point and collect, not unemployment, sorry, his CCP, Canadian Pension Plan, that's CPP. I don't really think they should be doing that just yet. My dad's not in a rush to retire. And the longer you wait, the higher amount you're going to get off CPP. My dad, I think, is about 62, 63 years old right now. So he's doing pretty well for himself in that aspect. They own their property. Property's worth a decent chunk of change at this point. They have options, which a lot of people don't. So I'm glad that they do. But unfortunately, they never really had a good portfolio or a good account. So that's where I just decided to step in. And I just told my mom, like, this portfolio has been performing horribly. Like, let me just do it. Take the stress off your back. Let me tell you. Well, I literally pretty much just hop in and do everything for them. And it's also a little bit better for them that way too, because I don't think they need that extra stress in their life. So I'm glad that, like I said, I've been fortunate enough to be able to help them in those positions, and fortunate enough for hopefully you guys to slap a like for even showing you this stuff, because this is some pretty personal information here, which is kind of nice because it makes, I'm trying to find, I'm debating on whether I want to start helping other people manage their portfolios. I get a lot of people that want to give me money, people that want me to help them, and I've just never really done too much of it yet. I try and teach them and lead them in a direction, but that's only because I don't want them coming back on me if something goes wrong, because usually people just don't want to listen. And when you buy these positions, it's trying to get them to understand that you're buying companies, you're buying shares, is imagining if you're owning that company. You might not be owning a lot of it, it might be a few bricks in the wall, but goddamn, those are your bricks and you own them, and you have share voters' rights. You get to elect that comes into these companies, these like the CEOs, the board members, so long as it's if it's majority owned by shareholders and there's no big whales in there like you had with Canopy Growth Corp firing, Constellation Brands firing Bruce Linton. That's what happens when some shareholders get more voting power than anybody else. They end up being able to kick you out even as a CEO. Let's be real. That's what happened to Steve Jobs at Apple there. I mean, it's just, you don't realize how much power CEOs don't have. And the other day when I was working for the Royal Bank, I was trying to explain this to my friend, because I was just like, look, you see that guy up there? He might be getting the biggest paycheck because he's got to make sure this boat sails in the right direction, and he's pretty much got to buy into this company to get paid. But at the same time, you pretty much get to vote on those guys, whether they get to stay in or not. And if someone screws up enough, they don't get to last. So it's kind of interesting that you as a shareholder technically have more power over a company as a whole than essentially the CEO pretty much does in some circumstances. Obviously, in other circumstances, you don't get those luxuries. It depends on the companies you own. But at the same time, guys, I think it's kind of neat to look at my parents' portfolio, and you can compare it to mine in the last video that I posted there, and you guys can kind of see the differences. I really try and make sure I pick them safe, reliable companies that I know are going to do well, because I take on a lot more risk than they do, but that's because I have time. They don't have time. They're looking into retirement. They need some growth. They need some dividends, and they need that dividend to be growing fast and soon so they can start relying on it in the next few years if they so choose. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Something a little different for you today. Stay cool. Stay awesome. I look forward to chatting to you real soon.